Hello students, in our previous lecture we are start to study ITR second. ITR second is relating to the individual and HUF but not carrying business or profession. Okay, so ITR second is applicable for those assessee who earn a income from commission, who earn a income from interest. Okay, that is a consignee. Okay, consignee means agent. Okay, so agent has get a commission. Okay, for example, a LIC agent earn a income from commission, so the LIC agent can file ITR second. Okay, so here ITR second, we discuss the ITR second, that is part A, general information. General information includes name of assessee, PAN card of assessee, address, date of birth. Okay, then status, mobile number. Okay, so we already discussed the general information of assessee for filing income tax return second, as well as we studied a schedule second, that is schedule S relating to the salary or the assessee who earn income from uh, two or more houses. Okay, then the assessee will file the income tax return second. Okay, we already discussed the schedule S. Okay, here schedule S includes name of employer, nature of employer, then address of employer, town, city of employer, state and pin code of employer, TAN number of employer. Okay, then we compute salary. Okay, then we also discuss the schedule HP relating to the house property. It includes address of property number 1, then town, city, state. Okay, pin code number uh, is the property co-owner. It means any partner is in house property. So if the house property is purchased by 2 person, then the percentage of shares in that property is furnished here. Then name of co-owner, PAN card of co-owner or Aadhaar card of co-owner, percentage share in property. Okay, so all information furnished here relating to the co-owner. Okay, then then we compute a taxable or income from house property. Okay, income from house property, that is here after filing the information relating to the house property, we compute a income from house property. Okay, so here gross annual value which is given in the problem, so put the figure in this column. Okay, here then here gross value is the total of 1B 1C. Okay, is the total of 1B 1C. Here, okay, we already discussed this in our ITR 1, how to compute a income from house property. Okay, so income from house property can be computed with the help of the information available, that is laid out property, then gross annual value minus municipal tax or minus unrealized rent. We get a annual value, then we deduct a standard deduction from annual value, that is 30% in respect of repairs and maintenance of house property. Then we deduct a arrears of rent or unrealized rent recovered in current year or in assessment year. Then we deduct a 30% value from the arrears or rent, unrealized rent received. Okay, then we deduct this from the annual value. We get a income from house property. Got it? that is income from house property, property number 1. Then we fill address of property 2. Okay, so ITR 2 is filed by a assessee whose house property is more than 1. Okay, so here another house property is detail furnished by assessee or compute a income from house property of house property number 2nd. Okay, then fill same information here. Let out property, name of tenant. Tenant means those person who take a property on rent or lease. Okay, so here name of the tenant, Aadhaar card, PAN card, number of tenant, then tenant Aadhaar card number. Okay, then here gross annual value, then amount unrealized rent, amount of unrealized rent, then tax paid to the local authority, that is municipal tax. We make a total of second B, second C, and that total put in the column of D, that is 2D, and then we deduct on, then we consider this value or deduct this value from the gross annual rent. Okay, gross annual rent. We get a annual value of the house property, annual value of house property. Then we deduct a 30% standard deduction. Then interest payable on borrowed capital, it means loan is taken for the purpose of construction of house. Okay, then interest is divided or interest is deducted from the annual value. Then we get a total. Then we deduct a 30% unrealized rent recovered in assessment year. Then we get income from house property number 2. Okay, then we make a total of house property first and 2, and that total is called income under the head of house property. Got it? And the value is put in the column number 4. Then we also discuss the CG. No, here now we are going to discuss the CG. CG means capital gain. We already discussed capital gain is the next head of the income. Okay, so capital gain includes a part 1, that is capital gain is divided in 2 parts, that is A, short term capital gains and long term capital gains. So first of all we discuss the short term capital gains. Okay, so short term capital gains A is given, so we fill the information if provided by the assessee, that is short term capital gain. Okay, it includes from sale of land or building or both. If the assessee will earn a income from short term capital gain from sale of land or building, okay, or both, it includes full value of consideration received or receivable. It means the value of land and building sold. Okay, so at which cost the assessee was sold the property, it's called full value of consideration received or receivable. It means received or receivable. It means received or receivable means actually cash received, then we taken into consideration, or account receivable or cash receivable. It means cash due from the third party. Then we also taken into consideration the capital gain. Then second, value of property as per stamp valuation authority. So here we taken into consideration the valuation of house property or valuation of land and building as per the authority, as per the valuation, as per the government valuation. In simple word, as per the government valuation, we taken into consideration the value of property, that is land and building. Then third point is given here, that is full value of consideration adopted as per section 50C for the purpose of capital gains does not exceed 1.5 times. Take this figure as A1 or else take A2. Okay, So we have to find here the full consideration taken into consideration, and we put the value in A1 or A2 column. Then here B part is deduction under section 48, cost of acquisition without indexation. Okay, B1. Then cost of improvement without indexation. So cost for acquisition of that property. Okay, so cost incurred for acquisition of that property is taken into consideration, and then we put the figure in B1 column. Then cost of improvement, it means cost of development of that land and building or that property. Okay, so that value should be taken into consideration, and then we put the value in front of column B2. Then expenditure wholly and exclusively in connection with transfer. So expenses incurred for transfer of property is also taken into consideration for deduction. Okay, so here we consider the transfer value of the property in B3 column. Then we make a total, that is B1 plus B2 plus B3 is the total of B4 column put. Then balance, we get a balance, C part. Balance is equal to A3 minus B4. Okay, A3 minus B4 is the balance. Okay, so here we deduct this value from A3. Okay, then we get a balance of property or capital gain. Then we deduct a deduction under section 54B, specify details in items D below. So if we get a deduction in respect of section 54B, we have to provide all details regarding the section 54B in the D column. Okay, if it is applicable, then we taken into consideration. If it is not applicable, then we ignore it, we did not taken into consideration. Then we put the figure remaining balance in ALE column, that is short-term capital gain on immovable property. So here we have to find out the short-term capital gain of immovable property, that is 1C minus 1D. 1C minus 1D, we get a short-term capital gain. If 1D is not given, then there is no change in the short-term capital gain. Balance income or balance capital gain is considered as a short-term capital gain. We put the same figure in the A1E column. Then if in case of transfer of immovable property, please furnish the following details. See the notes. So here, if the transfer of immovable property, then the assessee will furnish all the information relating to the respective property. So here 7 column is given, that is first column is serial number. Next one is name of buyers. Buyer means those person who purchase the property, immovable property. Then PAN or Aadhaar card number of buyer. Then percentage of shares. Okay, so the percentage of share is very important. The property is full property is purchased by buyer, or half property, or 25% property. So here we have to mention the percentage of share in the percentage of share column. Then amount, then address of property. Okay, and then pin code number of the address. Okay, so all the information relating to the immovable property transfer to another person, so this information will be furnished by the assessee in this column. Okay, then here note is given, furnishing of PAN or Aadhaar number is mandatory. So here PAN card number and Aadhaar card number of buyer is mandatory, is compulsory. Okay, then in case of more than one buyer, please indicate the respective percentage share and amount. So it is very important, the buyer is more than one, then percentage of their shares in the property may be mentioned in the column respectively. Okay, got it. Then next one is second point, that is from sale of equity shares or unit of equity oriented mutual funds or unit of a business trust on which STT is paid under section 11A and 115 AD provision for FW. Okay, so here if necessary we fill the information here. If the information given in the problem, then we fill the information relating to the section 11A, okay, or 115 AD subsection 1 2. Okay, so here full value of consideration, it means the full value or full value of shares or consideration received by the SEC. Then deduction under section 48, same deduction. Then balance. Okay, then we get a short-term capital gain on equity shares. Okay, first of all we study the short-term capital gain of immovable property. Now we study the short-term capital gain in respect of equity shares. If a SEC held equity shares, then full value of consideration, okay, held equity shares and then he sell the equity shares to other person, then full value of consideration is taken into consideration, as well as they get a deduction under section 148. Okay, so deduction is same, and balancing figure is given here after deducting the cost of acquisition, cost of improvement and expenditure incurred on the transfer of shares. Okay, so all these value are taken into consideration, we get a total. Then we find out a balance, we deduct these deductions from the full consideration or full value of equity shares received by the SEC, we get a balance. Then D part is loss to be disallowed under section 94 subsection 7. So here loss of equity shares or loss in transferring the equity share is disallowed. It means it is not allowed as a business loss. Okay, so here loss is disallowed. For example, if asset brought acquired within 3 months prior to record date and divided income bonus units are received, then a loss arising out of sale of such assets is to be ignored. So loss is ignored. Okay, loss is not taken into consideration here, so we did not deduct the loss from the capital gain short term. Then we get a short term capital gain on equity shares, that is A2E. Okay, first of all we find out A1E. Now we find out A2E. So A1E is relating to the immovable property of the SEC sold, or immovable property sold by the SEC to the other person. Okay, and here equity shares. Okay, A2E is relating to the equity shares transfer or equity shares sold. So here sold of equity shares to other person. So all relating to the equity shares. Okay, that is A2E. Then for non-resident, so here rules is given. Then short-term capital gain on transaction on which securities transactions tax. Okay, so here STT is stand for securities transaction tax. Got it? So security transaction tax is paid by the SEC, then here taken into consideration that tax. Then short-term capital gain on transaction on which security tax transaction is not paid, okay, is paid, then it is taken into consideration in A3A. If not paid, then it is taken into consideration in A3B. Okay, for non-resident, so here 4 point is non-resident. Okay, so here in case of non-resident, in case securities sold include shares of a company other than quoted shares, enter the following details. So if the securities sold include the shares of the company other than quoted shares, then the SEC will furnish the following information. So here first is full value of consideration received or receivable in respect of unquoted shares. Okay, So here the assessee will furnish the unquoted value of shares received in A1A. Then second one is fair market value of unquoted shares determined in the prescribed manner. So here the fair market value of the shares is also furnished here as prescribed manner. Then full value of consideration in respect of unquoted shares adopted as per section 50 CA for the purpose of capital gain. Okay, that is in front of 1C column. Then second part is given, that is full value of consideration in respect of securities other than unquoted shares. Then we make a total, that is IC plus 2. IC means here we get a total of IC. Then here total of IC, here we get total of IC. Then we add this 2 point, that is full consideration. Okay, full consideration received, we get a total. Then we get a deduction in the respect of section 48. Okay, section 48. So section 48 includes cost of acquisition, cost of improvement, expenditure incurred on transfer of such shares. Then we get a balance. Okay, then we get a balance if the assessee has incurred a loss during the transfer of shares, then this loss is disallowed, it is ignored. Then short-term capital gain on sale of securities by an F second other than those at A2 or 4C plus 4D, we get a A4E. Okay, other than 4C plus 4D, we get a A4E, that is short-term capital gain, F second. Then fifth point is for sale of assets other than A1 or A2 or A3 or A4. So here we also studied the immovable property transfer. It includes land and building. Now other assets, okay, other fixed assets. So here other fixed assets includes in case assets sold including shares of the company. Quoted shares enters the following details. So company has sold the assets plus shares, then we fill this information. Okay, then we fill this information, then get a reduction. So valuation is same. Okay, but here we taken into consideration that the other asset as well as shares. Then we get amount deemed to be short-term capital gain. Then next point is A, whether any amount of unrealized capital gain on asset transferred during the previous year shown below was deposited in the capital gain account scheme within due date for that year. Okay, if it is applicable, then we yes, not applicable, no, or not applicable. If we yes, then provide the details given below. Okay, if given, then we tick mark on appropriate box, that is yes. Okay, if we tick mark on yes, then we have to furnish, we have to means the assessee have to furnish the information relating to the this unrealized unutilized capital gain. Okay, unutilized capital gain. Then here we get amount total deemed to be short-term capital gain A6. Okay, that is AXI plus B. Okay, then here 8 point, that is account of short-term capital gain includes A1 to AC but not chargeable to tax or chargeable at special rate. Okay, in India as per DTAA. Then here information is provided, we have to fill the necessary information regarding this column. Then we get a total short-term amount chargeable to tax in column A8A, capital a 8 small a. Got it? Then next, 9th point is total short-term capital gain is equal to A1E plus A2E plus A3A plus A3B plus A4E plus A5E plus A6 plus A7 plus A8A. So here we get a total short-term capital gain of the SAC. Okay, so we study here the short-term capital gain, how to compute. So we studied that the how to fill information of capital, short-term capital gain from immovable property, then shares, then unquoted or quoted shares. Okay, sorry, quoted shares plus other asset plus shares. Okay, so this 4 points is very important. If this information is given in the problem, then we fill this information here. The next one long-term capital gain. So long-term capital is gain is valuation is same. There is no any distinction between short-term and capital gain. But here we have to fill the long-term capital gain in point number 9 B. Okay, so here we fill the information. If the land and building was sold by the SAC, then we fill the information here, that is full consideration received or receivable, then value of property as per the government valuation. Okay, then deduction under section 48 for acquisition of land and building, for development of land and building, expenditure incurred for transfer of land and building. Then we make a total, that is B1 plus B2 plus B3. We get a total, that is B4. Then we find out a balance. How to find out a balance? A3 minus B4. We get a total. Then deduction under section. So here specified deduction is given, that is deduction 54, 54B, 54EC, 54F, 54GB. If applicable to SEC, then we take it into consideration. If not applicable to the SEC, then we ignore. Then long-term capital gain on immovable property. Okay, immovable property, same valuation or same calculation is given here. If the property is sold to the another person, then name of that person, it means name of the buyer, PAN card or Aadhaar card, number of buyer, percentage of shares in property of the buyer, then amount of the property purchased, on which amount the property was sold, and which amount the property was purchased by the buyer, then address of property and pin code number of property. Same notes is given here, that is Aadhaar card and PAN card number of the buyer is mandatory, is compulsory. Okay, if more than 2 person has purchased this property, immovable property, then each and every partner's shares will be furnished in the percentage of shares column. Okay, then same for sale of bonds or debentures. Okay, sale of bonds and debentures, it is a investment in debentures and bonds for long term, then full consideration. So debenture and bonds are sold by the SEC, then full consideration. Then we get a deduction for acquisition or for improvement or for expenditure incurred for transfer of such investment, transfer of such bonds and debentures. Then we make a total is equal to B1 plus B2 plus B3. Okay, then we find out a balance. How to find out? That is 2A minus B4. We get a balance. Then we get a deduction under section 54F. If applicable to the SEC, then we taken into consideration. If not applicable to the SEC, then we ignore the deduction under section 54F. Okay, Okay, then here non-resident, so condition is same for long-term capital gain or short-term capital gain. We already discussed the non-resident for sale of shares or debentures or of Indian company. So here computation with foreign exchange adjustment given here. Same deduction under section 48, balance deduction 54F, long-term capital gain. Okay, so here the computation is same, but here taken into consideration that the immovable property, okay, and debenture bonds of the SEC, if SEC sold the debentures and bonds to the other person, then full consideration plus deduction, we get a long-term capital gain. Okay, then here information relating to the part D, that is deduction information relating to the deduction claimed under section 54B, 54EC, 54F. Okay, so here the necessary deduction information is furnished by the SEC in this column or in this page. Okay, then here short-term capital gain and long-term capital gain uh, taxability, that is 15%, 30% applicable rate. Okay, then total loss set off. So here loss set off and carry forwarded is recorded in this column, that is 9 number column. Okay, then here the figures of STCG in this table A1E etc. are the amount of short term computed in respect of column A1 to A6 reduced by the amount of short term capital gain not chargeable to tax or chargeable at special rate as per the DTAA. Then long term capital gain, it means we also study the carry forward and setup of losses. Okay, so carry forward and setup of losses is given here. Okay, then here information about accrual receipts or capital gain. Accrual receipts means outstanding receipts. Okay, those income which is receivable. Short term capital gain taxable at the rate 15%. Enter value from item number 3 sub 33 of schedule BFLA in any. So here tax rate is given for short term capital gain, amounted to rupees, or in percentage is given, that is 15%. Short term capital gain taxable at the rate 30% in second point. Okay, so here rate of income tax is given. Then here note is very important note, please include the income of the specified person. If it is applicable to SEC, then we fill the information here. Here schedule number 112A, from sale of equity shares in a company or unit of equity oriented for or unit of business trust on which STT security tax paid. Okay, security transaction tax. Okay, STT stand for security transaction tax paid under section 112A, then furnish the information in this respective column. Got it? For non-residents has furnished the information of their equity or unit in this column, and for here information is fill in this column. Then here OS, other source. Now schedule OS means income from other source. So income from other source we will discuss in our next video. Okay, so again we revise the short term capital gain and long term capital gain. Okay, बघा यामध्ये आपण लास्ट लेक्चरला ITR 2 हा डिस्कशनला घेतलेला आहे. ITR 2 हा आपण डिस्कस केला, त्यामध्ये पार्ट ए आपण अभ्यासला. पार्ट ए हा कशाशी रिलेटेड आहे तर जनरल इन्फॉर्मेशनशी रिलेटेड आहे. जनरल इन्फॉर्मेशन फिल केल्यानंतर शेड्यूल एस लागतं. शेड्यूल एस हे कशाचं आहे तर सॅलरीचं आहे. मग त्यामध्ये एम्प्लॉयरची सर्व माहिती प्लस त्याची त्यामध्ये आपल्याला SSCची सॅलरी कम्प्यूट करायची आहे. सॅलरी कम्प्यूट केल्यानंतर आपल्याला शेड्यूल HP लागतं. शेड्यूल HP म्हणजे काय, शेड्यूल हाऊस प्रॉपर्टी. त्यामध्ये हाऊस प्रॉपर्टीचा इन्कम आपल्याला काय करायचा असतो, फिल करायचा असतो. लक्षात आलं, भरायचा असतो. मग आता हा ITR कधी किंवा कोण भरू शकतं तर ज्या SSCची प्रॉपर्टी एका हाऊस प्रॉपर्टीपेक्षा जास्त आहे असा व्यक्ती भरू शकतो. मग त्यासाठीच त्यांनी 2 हाऊस प्रॉपर्टी दिलेल्या आहेत. तर 2 हाऊस प्रॉपर्टी असतील तर 2 प्रॉपर्टी 1 आणि प्रॉपर्टी 2 असे त्यात भाग केलेले आहेत. त्यामध्ये इन्फॉर्मेशन आपण फिल करणार आहे. त्यानंतर आपण पाहिलं ते म्हणजे शेड्यूल CG मीन्स कॅपिटल गेन. कॅपिटल गेन मध्ये लॉंग टर्म कॅपिटल गेन आणि शॉर्ट टर्म कॅपिटल गेन आपण पाहिलं. आता शॉर्ट टर्म कॅपिटल गेन मध्ये काय काय इन्क्लूड आहे तर पहिला पार्ट त्यामध्ये आपण पाहिला तो म्हणजे शॉर्ट टर्म कॅपिटल गेन मध्ये की जर त्या SSCनं जमीन विकली असेल, बिल्डिंग विकली असेल तर त्या बिल्डिंग मधून मिळणारा फायदा त्याला म्हटलं तर कॅपिटल गेन. बेनिफिट म्हणजे प्रॉफिट. ओके, त्या ॲसेट विकून, ती कॅपिटल, ती लँड विकून, बिल्डिंग विकून झालेला प्रॉफिट किती आहे त्याला कॅपिटल गेन म्हटलं जातं आणि त्याच्यावर टॅक्स लागला जातो. मग यामध्ये काय काय कन्सिडर होतं तर त्या प्रॉपर्टीचं, त्या लँड अँड बिल्डिंगचं काय येणार आहे त्यामध्ये तर पहिल्यांदा येईल ते फुल कन्सिडरेशन रिसिव्ड ऑर रिसिवेबल. म्हणजे जर ती जमीन विकून किंवा बिल्डिंग विकून त्यांना मिळालेला जी काही रक्कम असेल, फुल कन्सिडरेशन, सर्वच्या सर्व रक्कम मिळाली असेल तरी लिहा. जरी येणं असेल, रिसिवेबल असेल, मिळणार असेल तरी घ्या. म्हणजे ती विचारात घ्या, त्या कॉलममध्ये आपण ती लिहिणार आहे. त्यानंतर व्हॅल्यू ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी ॲज पर द स्टॅम्प व्हॅल्युएशन अथॉरिटी. म्हणजे आणखी कोणती व्हॅल्यू विचारात घ्यावी लागेल तर व्हॅल्यू ऑफ दॅट लँड अँड बिल्डिंग ॲज पर गव्हर्नमेंट. So here government valuation amount is taken into consideration in column A2. म्हणजे A2 या कॉलम मध्ये आपण त्या हाऊस, त्या बिल्डिंगची, त्या लँडची गव्हर्नमेंट व्हॅल्यू किती आहे ती विचारात घेणार आहे. त्याच्यानंतर आपण काय करणार आहे तर फुल व्हॅल्यू ऑफ कन्सिडरेशन जी सेक्शन 50C प्रमाणे आपण इथे घेतलेली आहे. ओके, फॉर द पर्पज ऑफ कॅपिटल गेन इन केस डज नॉट एक्सीड्स 1.5 टाइम. म्हणजे आपण A2 पाहिला किंवा A2 जी रक्कम आहे गव्हर्नमेंट व्हॅल्युएशन, त्या गव्हर्नमेंट व्हॅल्युएशन पेक्षा 1.5 टाइम्स म्हणजे 1.5 टाइम्सने जास्त नसावी. लक्षात आलं, गव्हर्नमेंट व्हॅल्यू पेक्षा 1.05. ओके, 1.0, हिअर 0 इज व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट. 1.05 टाइम्स ती असता कामा नये किंवा त्याच्यापेक्षा जास्त असता कामा नये. लक्षात, म्हणजे 1.5 पर्यंत तुम्हाला ते अलाउड आहे, परंतु त्याच्यावरती गेलं 1.05च्या वर गेलं तर ते मान्य राहणार नाही. दुसरा त्यात सांगितलं आहे की A1 टेक दिस फिगर ॲज A1. म्हणजे A1ची जी फिगर आहे ती कोणती कन्सिडर करणार तर जी आपण आता 1.05 टाइम्स कन्सिडर केली किंवा त्याच्यापेक्षा जास्त नसावी ती व्हॅल्यू आपण फुल कन्सिडरेशनमध्ये धरणार आहे. म्हणजे तुम्हाला लक्षात इथं घेण्याचा एक पार्ट महत्त्वाचा आहे, तो म्हणजे की जे गव्हर्नमेंट व्हॅल्युएशन झालं असेल त्या लँड अँड बिल्डिंगचं त्याच्या 1.05 टाइम्स, ओके, तेवढ्या पटीनं 5 टाइम्स म्हणजे 1.0 टाइम्स म्हणजे तेवढ्या पटीनं तुम्हाला ती रक्कम कन्सिडरेशन तुम्ही चार्ज करू शकता, आकारू शकता, तेवढी घेऊ शकता आणि तेवढीच तुम्ही काय करायचे फुल कन्सिडरेशन मधून कन्सिडर करायची आहे. जर तुम्ही त्या कन्सिडरेशन जर जास्त असेल तर फुल व्हॅल्यू ओके, तर तेवढीच कन्सिडर होईल. त्यानंतर डिडक्शन मिळणार आपल्याला. मग डिडक्शन कशाचं आहे तर जी लँड अँड बिल्डिंग घेतली ती लँड अँड बिल्डिंग घेताना तिची असणारी कॉस्ट किती खर्च झाला ती तुम्हाला डिडक्शनसाठी अलाउड केली जाईल. त्याचबरोबर ती लँड अँड बिल्डिंग डेव्हलप तुम्ही केली असेल तर तिला खर्च झाला असेल तो खर्च. त्याचबरोबर ती लँड अँड बिल्डिंग तुम्ही काय करत असाल ट्रान्सफर करत असाल, ट्रान्सफर करताना आलेला खर्च इथं विचारात घेणार आहे. त्यानंतर आपण टोटल करणार. टोटल कशाची होईल तर जे 3 पॉईंट वाचले आपण डिडक्शन अंडर सेक्शन 48 त्या 3 पॉईंटची टोटल होईल. ती टोटल 1C मध्ये येईल. 1C मध्ये आल्यानंतर आपण परत डिडक्शन आपल्याला मिळेल 54B चं. जर अलाउड असेल तर घ्या, नसेल तर घेऊ नका. जर याची इन्फॉर्मेशन तुमच्याकडे असेल का तर 54B चं डिटेल्स तुम्हाला द्यावे लागतात डी मध्ये. लक्षात आलं. जर तुमच्याकडे त्याचे डिटेल्स असतील तर तुम्हाला ते मिळेल, नसेल तर ते मिळणार नाही. नसेल तर नील म्हणा, असेल तर ते आपण घेणार आहे. मग आपल्याला मिळेल शॉर्ट टर्म कॅपिटल गेन. आता शॉर्ट टर्म कॅपिटल गेन कसा मिळेल तर 1C मायनस 1D. जर असेल तर आपण 1C मधून 1D मायनस करणार, आपल्याला शॉर्ट टर्म कॅपिटल गेन मिळणार आहे इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टीचा. लक्षात आलं. त्यानंतर ही प्रॉपर्टी कुणाला ट्रान्सफर केलेली आहे, जी इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी आहे तिचा बायर कोण आहे. ओके, बायर म्हणजे कोण तर ज्या व्यक्तीनं ती प्रॉपर्टी काय केलेली आहे खरेदी केलेली आहे अशी व्यक्ती, त्या व्यक्तीचं नाव, त्या व्यक्तीचा पॅन कार्ड नंबर, त्या व्यक्तीचा आधार कार्ड नंबर आपल्याला इथं लिहावा लागेल. त्याचबरोबर त्या व्यक्तीने किती टक्के प्रॉपर्टी खरेदी केली. 100% केली असेल तर फुल ओनरशिप त्याची होईल. मग आता 50% केली असेल तर 50% आपण गृहीत धरणार. ती व्हॅल्यू किंवा ती प्रॉपर्टी त्याने किती रुपये रकमेला खरेदी केली त्या अमाऊंट येईल आणि त्याचा ॲड्रेस येईल त्या प्रॉपर्टीचा, जी प्रॉपर्टी त्याने खरेदी केली ती. त्यानंतर पिन कोड नंबर येईल. त्यामध्ये नोट सांगितले महत्त्वाची की जर एकापेक्षा जास्त लोकांनी ती खरेदी केली असेल लँड अँड बिल्डिंग तर त्या प्रत्येक पार्टनर्सचा किंवा त्या प्रत्येक व्यक्तीचा त्या प्रॉपर्टीमध्ये असणारा शेअर तुम्ही इथं मेन्शन करायचं आहे. ते त्यांना मॅन्डेटरी आहे, कंपल्सरी तुम्ही ते फर्निश करणं गरजेचं आहे. ओके. त्यानंतर इक्विटी शेअर संदर्भात आलं, म्युच्युअल फंड संदर्भात आलं. STT मीन्स काय तर सिक्युरिटी ट्रान्झॅक्शन टॅक्स, म्हणजे ज्या सिक्युरिटीज आहेत त्याचं ट्रान्झॅक्शन केलं आणि त्याच्यावर लागलेला टॅक्स असेल. ओके. मग यामध्ये काय सांगितले की आता हे शॉर्ट टर्म कॅपिटल गेन आहे की शेअर्स खरेदी केले विकले, शेअर्स खरेदी केले विकले, स्पेक्युलेटिव्ह बिझनेस त्याला म्हटलं जातं. लक्षात आहे. स्पेक्युलेशन, इन्कम फ्रॉम स्पेक्युलेशन म्हणजे सिक्युरिटीजचं ट्रान्झॅक्शन करून मिळणारा इन्कम. मग त्यामध्ये काय काय सांगितलंय त्यांनी ती इन्फॉर्मेशन आपण भरणार आहे. सेम ॲज इट इज आपण इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टीचं पाहिलं त्याच पद्धतीत आहे. मग फुल कन्सिडरेशन, त्यातून मायनस काय राहील डिडक्शन. डिडक्शन कशा कशाचं आहे ते आपण रीड केलेलं आहे. टोटल येईल, बॅलन्स येईल. आता मात्र सिक्युरिटीजमध्ये तुमचा लॉस इथं काय असतो डिसअलाउड असतो. लॉस तुम्हाला इग्नोर करावा लागतो. लक्षात आलं. लॉस तुम्ही विचारात घ्यायचा नाही. ओके. त्यानंतर शॉर्ट टर्म कॅपिटल गेन आपल्याला मिळेल A to E. लक्षात आलं. आता A to A मिळाल्यानंतर आपल्याला इथं तिसरा पॉईंट काढावा लागेल, तो म्हणजे नॉन रेसिडेंटसाठी. मग त्यामध्ये जर शॉर्ट टर्म कॅपिटल गेनच्या ट्रान्झॅक्शनवरती जर SECनं त्या व्यक्तीनं टॅक्स पेड केला असेल तर ती इतर रक्कम येईल. नसेल पेड केला तर A3B मध्ये जाईल. लक्षात आलं. आणि परत नॉन रेसिडेंटसाठी आहे फॉर सेल ऑफ सिक्युरिटीज, म्हणजे सेल ऑफ सिक्युरिटीजच्या रिलेटेड आहेत. आता पाहिलं ते आपण शेअर्स किंवा डिबेंचर्स पाहिलं, आता बघतोय ते सिक्युरिटीज. ओके. सेल ऑफ सिक्युरिटीज, सिक्युरिटीज इन्क्लूड डिबेंचर्स ऑन बॉन्ड्स. लक्षात आलं. मग त्यांची व्हॅल्यू, मग त्यामध्ये काय सांगितलं की सिक्युरिटी जी आहे ती कोटेड शेअर्सच्या कंपनीची जी कंपनी असेल ती अदर दॅन कोटेड शेअर्स असतील आणि ते विकले असेल तर त्याचं इथं आपल्याला व्हॅल्युएशन करता आलं पाहिजे किंवा त्याची इन्फॉर्मेशन इथं फिल करता आली पाहिजे. ओके. मग त्यामध्ये पहिल्यांदा कन्सिडरेशन रिसिव्ड, जेवढी काय रक्कम त्या अनकोटेड शेअर्सची मिळाली तेवढी आपल्याला लिहावी लागेल. त्याचबरोबर त्याची फेअर मार्केट व्हॅल्यू काय आहे त्या अनकोटेड शेअर्सची ती डिटरमाइन करून प्रिस्क्राइब्ड मॅनरमध्ये आपल्याला इथं प्रोव्हाइड करावी लागेल किंवा इथं फिल करावी लागेल. ओके, त्याचबरोबर फुल कन्सिडरेशन रिसिव्ड इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ अनकोटेड शेअर्स अडॉप्टेड ॲज पर सेक्शन. म्हणजे अनकोटेड शेअर्स घेतले आणि त्याचं विकले आणि त्यातून मिळणारं फुल कन्सिडरेशन इथं आपल्याला ATC प्रमाणे काय करायचं आहे, माहिती भरायची आहे. लक्षात आलं. त्याच्यानंतर डिडक्शन्स आहेत, टोटल आहे. टोटल कशी कम्प्यूट करणार आपण,